Hey, how's it going? How's everybody doing? I'm just going to be doing another one of those funny or effed up stories about my life. This one is not going to be funny. It's a little bit effed up, and you'll figure out why in just a second. Let me get the dust off these glasses. But if you want to subscribe, help me get up to 1,000 subs. I'd really appreciate it. You want to like and comment after watching the video. Tell me your opinion on some of the things I said. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh, or maybe I'm not being harsh enough. But anyway, we'll get into this right now. This gentleman right here is my grandfather, who passed away 4 years ago. It'll actually be 4 years at the end of this month. Um, he was a great man, really caring, loving man. I'm actually wearing his ring right now, which I don't generally wear because I would hate to damage it or lose it. But I'll get more about the ring a little bit later. This story isn't as much about him as it is for the person he married after divorcing my grandmother. Now, what I will say is that divorcing my grandmother was, well, excuse me, was it had to happen. Um, as much as I loved my grandmother very dearly, she passed away quite a while ago, almost 20. It'll be 28 years ago this April that she passed away. She was not healthy. She had diabetes. She had issues with alcohol. There's a lot of things, but their marriage was doomed for years. From when I was a small kid, they weren't even really together that much. There was a lot of yelling and stuff, but so that was an inevitable thing. People marry, people divorce. You know, it is what it is, and but from their perspective, it was definitely the best thing to happen. But anyway, moving on to this person that he married when I was very young. They were married when I was a child, and I think I was the first when I met her. I was 8 years old. They'd already been together for a while, and she in the beginning she seemed nice. She was friendly. You know, I liked her. Her name was, I'll say her. Well, no, I'm not going to say her name because her last name is on here. So just for privacy reasons, if I say her first name, then we'll just call her Betsy. That's not anywhere close to her actual name, but we'll just say Betsy. I don't know. For some reason, I was looking up on the shelf earlier, and I have a little toy of Betsy Palmer, who played Pamela Voorhees, but we'll just call her Betsy. And so anyway, in the beginning, Betsy was very friendly, nice, and everything else. And you know, I was welcome. I was allowed to sleep over and things every once in a while, but she never had any personal connection with me. Like if my grandfather, when I was a kid, would go somewhere, she wouldn't be there. It was always just me and my grandfather. She never came. She was never part of it. And I didn't really pick up on these things until I was a little bit older and started to sort of notice things. Why isn't Betsy coming? I never called her grandma. I always called her by her name. So I was always asked, why isn't she? Oh, she's got other things going on. She has this going on. And then so as time goes by, I would call him up on the phone just to say hi, and she would get on the phone, and without even saying hello, oh, it's you. And then she would just hand the phone off to my grandfather, and I would try and engage in a conversation just to say hi. This is before I start. This is only when I started to realize she was, well, a twat, and I'm being friendly at the moment, and I'm going to be less friendly as this goes by because as time went by, things got a lot worse, and she was really starting to show who she actually is. She's still alive. And I was actually going to make this video after she passed, which could be in 5 years, could be 10 years, could be tomorrow. But anyway, just because, you know, it was just going to be me just probably singing Ding Dong, the Bitch is Dead for like 10 minutes. But I thought, you know what? No, I want to do this while she's still in this world sharing my oxygen in case she sees it, and then she'll actually get an idea of how people really perceive her, at least on my grandfather's side of the family, not her side of the family. But anyway, as time goes on, I'd call, and I'd even try and engage and be like, oh, well, how are things? How are you? Oh, I'm fine. I'm good. Here's your grandfather. and she would never talk to me on the phone. She'd never once called me on the phone. My grandfather would call me. She'd never once called me on the phone. She never asked how I'm doing. She didn't give a shit, because as I got older and I got more into rock and metal and I was less preppier and pretty, then she would have wanted me to turn out like her family all was. The less she had an interest. I was just a bum. I was like nothing. I was where my grandfather still wanted to know what I was doing. He would come visit. He would, we'd visit him. So anyway, like her family was, she always talked about her family, how great her family was. If I was there at the same time, as there was one family member that was there all the time, or not all the time, but every once in a while, he was always the one that was there. Now, when he was little, he beat me up in front of her, and she thought it was funny. Just to put things into perspective, him and his brother, I think it was, but I'll get on that in a second. She would always talk about how, oh, he doesn't have TV. He doesn't sit around and watch TV. It's like, okay, so what does that mean? Like, does that make him better? I don't have TV. I have a TV, but I don't have cable and all this. But I don't sit there and say, I'm better than you because I don't watch garbage that people are paying to watch now. No, I just don't watch it because I'm not interested in it, but I don't care. But she made this like a big deal. And it's like, who cares? You have TV, you're kind of being a hypocrite in a lot of ways. But when I was small, him and his brother, they were older than me. They're bigger than me. I think I would have been 8 years old. And they had me in the basement and they're putting me in all these wrestling holds and they're punching me and I was crying and she's watching and she's laughing, thinking it's the funniest thing ever. I ended up with a nosebleed and cleaned it up. And she wasn't some rough and tumble woman that was like, suck it up, buttercup, toughen up, be a tough guy. She wasn't that kind of a person. She was some, money loving, gold digging twat who was very preppy and prissy and pretty much unlikable. And that's, and then as time went by, I'd call my grandfather and he'd be less and less interested in talking to me. And my family was less and less getting invited over and that sort of thing. He wouldn't have anything to do with much to do with my brothers or his great grandchildren. I can't really touch on that too much because I don't really know. But a lot of my family, my cousins, they were not welcome. In her words, I don't want those people in my house. She was quoted saying that by my aunt. Had heard her say that one time. Now my mom had two sisters. One sister lives out in a small town several miles from here, and my other aunt, my mom's other sister, she lived like two doors over, and I always thought she was on the side of my grandfather's wife, on Betsy's side, but I found out after my grandfather passed away, she actually didn't like her. She just went over there because she was married to my grandfather to see my grandfather, and she was there every day, pretty much. Her and her, I'm going to say husband. They're not actually married, but they common law for like years and years and years and years now. But anyway, we used to get invited over there for Christmas all the time, every Christmas. And then one day I was sitting with my brother, like at the table, and we were just having a conversation. Now, my family's not particularly religious, and neither is Betsy. Just to clarify why what I'm about to say is very ironic. Me and him were just having a conversation. I said something about not being religious, but I still enjoy Christmas. I like the holiday season. And she cuts right into the conversation and says to me, looks right at, she was sitting across me, doesn't even look at my brother, looks right at me and says, well, whether you like it or not, Christmas is a religious holiday. Like, okay, yeah, I know it's a religious holiday. It's the celebration of the birth of Christ. I understand what it's supposed to be, but I said, yeah, I know. I'm particularly not religious. I don't celebrate it for being religious or for religious reasons. I celebrate with my family. I use that as family time. We all get together. That's why we're here at this table. And she said, well, if that's how you feel, you have no business being here. And she's saying this. Every person at that table, with the exception of this creature, are blood relatives. I have more right to be at this table than she does. And this wasn't her house. This was at my aunt's house when she said it. But the only person that heard her say it, because she said it kind of quiet, was myself, my brother, and my aunt, who was sitting, or my wife, who was sitting on the other side, who was sitting over here. They're the only ones that heard it. And I was so close to just losing my shit and telling her right there and then what I thought of her. And then from that Christmas on, we'd never been invited back. We were never allowed to come there on Christmas. The only time we would ever go there, I'd go to visit my grandfather. If we were in the area, I'd call him up. She'd answer the phone. Oh, hi, here's your grandfather. And I'd ask, oh, what are you guys doing? What do you, we're in the area. We can come by. And we'd come by. Now, I'd be having a good conversation with my grandfather, but I would not be having a good conversation. All she would do is, oh, do you have a house yet? Do you have this yet? Oh, we have an espresso machine. Oh, we got this thing now. And just bragging about all the material shit she has that I couldn't care less about. Like, I have an espresso machine in my kitchen. I don't sit and brag about it. You know why? Nobody fucking cares. She doesn't get that. And she would just go on about all the stuff she has that she thinks we don't have, or how happy she thinks her life is and how depressing my life is. I have a wall of toys. How can I be depressed? Sure, I still have a mattress in the living room because we haven't had the time, too lazy and too much snow to just throw it away. But anyway, yeah, I am not a depressed person. I mean, I do have clinical depression, but it's not because of the things I have. It just is. But anyway, yeah, we were not invited over anymore. None of that stuff. So let's skip ahead. There's something else I thought I wanted to say about Christmas, but I can't remember what it is. So as time went by, my grandfather, he was aging. He did live to be, how old was he? 90. Well, he'd be 99 this year. So yeah, 95. He passed away at 95 years old. So he had a long life. The last few years, he had Alzheimer's and the other one where you can't remember you lose your memory. You don't know where I forget what it is. Now, Betsy, sorry, I said her name, but not enough people are going to watch this video. That fucking matters anyway. And fuck her. But anyway, Betsy, as I was saying, when my grandfather passed away, or actually as he was getting older, or getting closer to his end, that's what I'm trying to say, my mom had gone to visit a few times, and my grandfather kept thinking my mom was my actual grandmother and kept calling her, my grandmother's name was Marg, and he kept calling her Marg and saying, oh, we have to go now. He thought they were out at a party or something, and he would say, oh, it's a long drive to this city or part of wherever it is that they used to live years and years before, even before I was born. Say, oh, we have to go because we have to get the so-and-so. And I know that he couldn't remember Betsy, who she was, her name or anything. And he kept asking my mom, who's that man in the kitchen? Kept thinking that Betsy, his wife, was some man. Now, I know it sounds cold and probably very, very heartbreaking that your spouse doesn't remember who you are. But if she wasn't such an evil person, and I actually toned down a lot of the stuff I was going to say, but she basically took my grandfather away from my family, and he wouldn't, towards the end, he was having nothing to do with our family anymore. He would never call anybody. He would never invite people over. And when you did call him, he'd talk to you for like 5 minutes and then hang up the phone. And I remember being there when I was a little bit younger, and her family members would call, and she'd be on the phone with them, and then she'd hand the phone to him, and it'd go back and forth, and he'd be having these long conversations and laughing and joking. It's like, I realized at the end, he wasn't doing that with us anymore. And I know it's not because of anything we did. It's because that twat, that creature, decided that we weren't good enough to be part of her family and slowly started pulling us away from him, or separating my grandfather from us, so he wouldn't have anything to do with us anymore. And then as he got sick, she didn't tell a lot of people, first of all. And then later on, when he finally did pass, this is the thing that just made me hate this woman with as much hatred. There's only 3 people that I've known personally that I literally hate this much. One's a 400-pound, I can just say pedophile, for lack of a better term. and the other one is this entitled asshole, and I'm not going to mention any names, but if they do see the video, I wonder if they'll know who I'm talking about. But anyway, she's one of three people I've literally hated. And so when he passed away, suddenly things started going, all these boxes, Amazon boxes started getting found in the garbage and all this stuff. She was just spending all the money that he had. That's what my aunt, who's the neighbor, saw, and she's like, why is he, she's literally just buying stuff. Now I get people grieve in different ways, but I think she was just spending inheritance money, to be honest. That's my opinion. But anyway, going back, I'm sort of getting ahead of myself here, but the funeral, there was a funeral for him, obviously, and she had an open casket funeral that people could go and see, of course, but the only people that were allowed to go see were her freaking family. My family was not even allowed to be there. We weren't invited. We couldn't go. It was a private funeral for her family only, her side of the family. So skip ahead a month. And then finally, my family didn't get a funeral for him. We got a celebration of life, which, okay, that's fine. You know, it's nice, whatever. But why did her idiot family of obnoxious snobs get to say goodbye? Finally, their final goodbyes right there with him present, in their presence. But us, we had a celebration of life. Now, there was no body per se. I mean, it had been a month. So we're driving to the cemetery, something, okay, well, maybe the casket is somewhere, it's on ice or whatever, and they're going to bury him. But no, what she did, he did have a funeral plot. He did have a stone, apparently, but I can't confirm the stone thing, but he did have a burial plot. What she did is she sold it, kept the money, probably sold the stone too, or whatever it is, whatever they had planned for that, kept the money and had him cremated and put into something not even the size of a Kleenex box. And it wasn't like she gave the ashes to my mom or any of her sisters or kept them. No, it went into a cupboard about the size of one of these little things here with about 5 or 6 other strangers. Just the remains all in there. So you can't even go visit the grave site. You have to go and talk into this little square. Now, I'm not saying that's always a bad thing and that people necessarily had to be buried, but it was already arranged. It was already there. And she fucking sold it, kept the money, and then put him in a little box inside this little cabinet with a bunch of other people. You know, now I got nothing against the other people there, but that's not my family. I have no connection to them. I don't care about them. No offense, but I don't know them. But so we didn't even get a goodbye. We got where we sat in the church and looked at a video on the screen just showing still images. You know, it's like, oh, I remember that. I remember that. It's like, yeah, I also remember that he had a funeral a month ago that we weren't allowed to. What the fuck is this? You know, like we could have done this anyway. So I will never forgive this woman. I really hope that somewhere along the line she gets shown this before her final end. And I will really be happy when I no longer have to share my oxygen or the water supply of the world and the food supply with this pig. Okay, I'm sorry. I got no love for this woman whatsoever. She destroyed my family. She took my grandfather away from us. And then she sold the house. I mean, the house was hers to begin with. I'll give her that one. And then just disappeared and didn't tell anyone. She just moved away in the buttfuck Idaho. Nobody knows where. And which tells me, what did she do with all his stuff? Which is why I'm glad I got this ring. My grandfather gave me this ring several years ago as he was getting older, and gave me this ring. If he never gave it to me, I would not be wearing it now. I guarantee she would have taken it somewhere to a jeweler or somewhere and sold it and put the money in her own pocket, or bought a fucking bunch of Starbucks with it. Who knows? I don't know. But oh wait, she has an espresso machine she brags about all the time. You know, I have an espresso machine. I don't brag about it because nobody cares. But so she wouldn't be going to Starbucks, but she would be buying some junk with it, I'm sure. But so anyway, yeah, Betsy. Um, if you see this, that's what my family thinks of you. Oh, another funny thing: the day of my grandfather's celebration of life, she has the nerve to call me up on my phone and say, "Oh, it's Grandma Betsy." And it's like, you're not my grandmother. I've never called you grandmother. And she was just calling to remind us that it was today. Oh, and just so you know, things that, of course, I fucking know. Why would I not know this? You know, like, God, stupidity of some stupid people. But anyway, like I said, I hope she sees this because, and I was so ready to erupt on her at the celebration of life. I was ready just to tell her, but everybody's there. It's supposed to be a positive thing, so I just let it go, and I never talked to her since, and I will never talk to her again unless somehow she talks to me. But anyway, so it's a little bit of an angry one, but I did tone it down a lot. I think I did leave other things out that I wanted to talk about just for length reasons. Oh yeah, and I started blah blah blah. But the fact at Christmas she said I had no business being there and it wasn't even her house. You know. But anyway, this is my grandfather once again. He was a great man, very generous man, and my grandfather's wife, Betsy, um, took him away from us. So fuck you, Betsy, and I don't know, just hurry up and die. Anyway, I know that was not the friendliest, happiest video, but I just had to get it out there, and just in case, hopefully she'll freaking see it, and she'll know. Anyway, if you watched it all the way, sorry, my throat's very dry. If you watch it all the way, thank you. If you want to subscribe, help me get to 1,000 subs, please. That would really make my day. And like, comment, maybe tell me how you feel about how I feel. Maybe I'm being the asshole. I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe. Anyway, until the next one.